Hello and welcome to the Brock and the Buzzard podcast, season 3, episode number 10. Sorry about this terrible camera. Had issues with the prior stream, so I apologize. But on today's show, or should I say, it's not about how I look, it's what I say. So we're going to just go with that tonight as, like I said, tried to record this before and the camera was completely black for some reason, and now it's really fuzzy and it looks really bad. But we're going to go with it just to get this material out to you guys as quick as I possibly can before it gets too old. But on today's show, we're going to talk about Khalil Shakir getting paid by the Buffalo Bills. Not the Oklahoma City Thunder, but the former team I used to cover because that's what people want to hear about. Obviously, the New York Knicks I'm talking about, for those of you who do not know, and the fact they are in legit trouble this season and will be come playoff time. And I'll explain all of that. And also a new little segment of the show to conclude. We're going to talk about NASCAR. I know some of you guys don't like it. I don't really care because behind the NBA, that is the sport I want to cover the most. So I'm going to discuss which driver and which team we're going to cover on this podcast moving forward. And it will be a damn fun ride because now my job is to make you all fans of this driver and fans of this race team that I'm about to speak on. But as I said, first, let's dive into Khalil Shakir. On Tuesday, the Buffalo Bills locked up one of their cornerstones of their offense as the Buffalo Bills and wide receiver Khalil Shakir agreed on a 4-year, $60.2 million extension. That is according to Adam Schefter of course, ESPN, which essentially equates to $15.02 million. This deal comes after Shakir had his best season of his NFL career. He had 76 total receptions, 821 total yards, and 4 touchdowns. And here is my opinion on this contract extension, of course, negotiated with Shakir and Brandon Beane, obviously. So, first and foremost, I have no problem with this extension whatsoever. Why? Simply put, Khalil Shakir earned this extension. The amount of production that he has been giving the Bills over the last 2 seasons in particular has been nothing short of excellent for the Buffalo Bills and their offense. Also, Khalil Shakir rose up the depth chart as the season progressed, even with Amari Cooper being added to the squad at the trade deadline this past October. Khalil Shakir was clearly still the number one option for Josh Allen, or should I say the 2024 NFL MVP, Josh Allen. And he will probably continue to be that unless Keon Coleman makes a major step forward in year 2, something that Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott not only want, but are expecting from the second-year wide receiver out of Florida State. Also, this contract looks daunting when you first see it. As I said, $15.2 or $0.02 million. It looks big, but in a grand scheme of things, it's nothing at all compared to, say, what a Jamar Chase is about to get paid. Even I'll take it as far as T. Higgins will get paid eventually here. And also, too, the NFL's cap will increase by just under $30 million this year as the cap became official today for all teams. The cap for the 2025 NFL season will be $279.2 million, the largest salary cap number of all time. And of course, I don't see that number decreasing anytime soon as the NFL is continuing to prove they are one of the, if not the most popular sport across the world. So, with that said, again, this will probably end up being a steal for Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott and the Buffalo Bills. Khalil Shakir has signed a 4-year, $60.2 million contract with an average of $15.02 million. A deal that does not kick in until 2026. Let's let's make that also very clear as well. And now the question becomes, who's next? And Bills GM Brandon Beane did speak on this at the press conference at the NFL's draft combine as of, I believe, yesterday. He says there is multiple extensions being worked on. And that's pretty much all he said. Has given no indication on who they are, but a smart Bills fan should know who they are. They include 2024 NFL MVP Josh Allen. That is still very, 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 very weird to say. Running back James Cook and defensive end Greg Rousseau. So I expect those extensions to start filing in slowly but surely. But Khalil Shakir gets his first. Again, he signed a 4-year deal worth $60.2 million on Tuesday with an average of $15.02 million, as reported by Adam Schefter of ESPN. And now on to the New York Knicks. The Knicks are in legit trouble, and here is why. The New York Knicks are in trouble. It's not even a maybe. It's an R in trouble. Even with that being said, they still do have one of the best starting fives in the NBA, featuring two-time NBA All-Star Jalen Brunson, Mikal Bridges, Karl Anthony Towns, and Josh Hart, and also OG Anunoby. Like I said, the New York Knicks have one of the best starting fives in all of the NBA. Okay. Jalen Brunson has had another stellar season for New York. Mikal Bridges is slowly but surely fitting in with the Knicks. Karl Anthony Towns has been a revelation for the New York Knicks this year. Also, let's throw in Josh Hart, who has been spectacular in his starting role. And of course, OG Anunoby, you know what he's going to bring, especially on the defensive end every single night for the New York Knicks. But the trouble is this. The New York Knicks have one of the worst, and I mean the worst, bench in the NBA. It's about as bad as the Washington Wizards bench. It's about as bad as the Phoenix Suns bench, which is pretty bad. It's about as bad as the Charlotte Hornets bench, which is awful. And who was on that bench for the New York Knicks? Let me throw some names out there to you. Miles Deuce McBride. He's a shooting guard that has a point guard body, if you know what I'm saying. Landry Shamet, who's been washed up for 5 years. Cam Payne, who's been on really good teams over the course of the last 5 years. But he doesn't do anything crazy for you. And then you add in Precious Achiuwa. Meh. Then you add in Trying to think who else. Mitchell Robinson, who hasn't even played a game this season. Again, he's hurt. Typical, and New York Knicks fans know that better than anybody. Just how often that man is hurt. And a bunch of young guys like Tyler Kolek, Pacome, uh, Dadier. Forgot his name for a second. That's how often I've watched him play this year. The answer to that is none. So, and I knew the bench was going to be atrocious. I knew it as soon as they made the trade for Karl Anthony Towns. Atrocious. Okay. They gave up, essentially, even after the Mikal Bridges trade, their sixth man, Dante DiVincenzo, in that deal. Yes, he hasn't had a great year in Minnesota. Yes, he's been hurt the last several weeks. But Dante DiVincenzo is better than all of those scrubs on the New York Knicks bench. I'll say it, they're scrubs on the New York Knicks bench. Also, you make this trade and then you, like I said, if you've been paying attention to my podcast for a very long time, you know I've said this before and I'll say it again. As soon as the Knicks made this Karl Anthony Towns trade, like, this is your team for the next 5 years. And you really can't do anything with it because you're over the second apron. You have no draft capital because you gave that all away for Mikal Bridges. You really don't have any financial flexibility at all. The Knicks went all in, partially because of Mitchell Robinson's continued injury struggles. In fact, he's pretty much the only contract they could essentially trade to free up cap space, but nobody wants him because he's injured all the damn time. And that's something they should have done maybe 2 years ago. They wouldn't be in this position right now if they traded Mitchell Robinson about 2 years ago. Because everybody knew, well, I'll give Mitchell Robinson credit for this. When he's healthy, he's extremely effective. But when he's not, when he's playing through injury, he's terrible. He's useless out there. Okay? So, now there's a lot of talk of, just wait until Mitchell Robinson gets back. They're going to put Karl Anthony Towns at the 4. What's that going to do? What's that going to do? Lo and behold, he returns and hurts the same ankle again. Lo and behold, his first game back, Tom Thibodeau plays him 35 minutes. More on him in a little while. Lo and behold, you move Josh Hart, who has been a revelation for you, back to the bench, but you still play him 30-plus minutes every night because you have to, because he's that important to your team. So does Mitchell Robinson really make that big of a difference? The answer to that is no. Because your offense is really good. Is Mitchell Robinson a really good offensive player? No. Does he take the defense maybe a little? Is it a little better? No. Or yes. But is it as good as the 3 teams they haven't beaten this year? The 3 best teams in the NBA, the New York Knicks have not beaten. Who are they? The Cleveland Cavaliers, the Oklahoma City Thunder, and the Boston Celtics. Think about this for a second. The Detroit Pistons, who are just maybe 6-8 games over 500, just clobbered the Boston Celtics at home last night. And that is no disrespect to the Detroit Pistons, who are having a phenomenal season. That is clearly a shot at the Knicks, because the Knicks on paper, have better talent than the Detroit Pistons do, right? Yeah, people are going to say, oh, yeah, the Celtics didn't have Jalen Brown, this and that. Their starting five has hardly been healthy all season. Jalen Brown missed games at the start of the year. Drew Holiday's missed games. Kristaps Porzingis obviously has missed games. So that's that excuse is null and void. Detroit is playing phenomenal basketball right now in the Eastern Conference. As a matter of fact, they're tied with the Milwaukee Bucks for the fifth seed in the conference. Who would have thought that 2 months ago? Absolutely nobody. So my point being is this: the New York Knicks can't beat the teams they have to beat. The Celtics and the Cavs. They're going to have to beat at least one, if not both, of those teams to make it to the NBA Finals. And Knicks fans at the start of the season were like, oh my God, this is our year. Oh my God, we have the best starting five in the NBA. I don't care if I sound like a clown. I'm glad I'm gone from New York. I'm glad. I'm happy. I'm happier because my team isn't financially locked down for 5 years with the same lineup that's going to age, that's going to break down because of Tom Thibodeau. Because he plays those five guys 40 minutes a night. Why? Because his bench is terrible. Why? Because he is stuck in his ways and has been for over a decade. Tom Thibodeau cost us one of the best young point guards of all time to come out in the last 15 years. His name is Derrick Rose. Yeah, his body broke down. Yeah, you know, he was a high flyer. He was this. It was bound to happen. Blah, 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 blah. But Tom Thibodeau had his best teams with Derrick Rose as his starting point guard, and he still played him 35, 40 minutes a night. And then I look at a team like the Oklahoma City Thunder. Let me toot my own horn. I mean, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander has sat out how many fourth quarters? 14? I don't think a single Thunder player averages over 30 minutes a night. Maybe Jalen Williams, J.W. Williams. Maybe. If so, he's just over 30. I'll give you a perfect example. Alex Caruso last night got banged around, got a black eye. Thunder won, by the way, against the Brooklyn Nets. It was an ugly game. Different conversation for another day. But he got banged around. He's been dealing with the hip all season, an ankle, now his eye. And you know what I just read on Twitter? Alex Caruso is out tomorrow against the Atlanta Hawks because of rest. Smart by the Thunder, because you're going to need him not only down the stretch of the season, which really the stretch is right now, but the Thunder can afford this because they have a 8.5, 9-game lead in the Western Conference. But you also are going to need him in the playoffs against the Lakers, against the Nuggets, against Minnesota, etc. Good teams know when to rest their players. Ooh, surprise. The Thunder are doing that and have done that all year. The Knicks have not, and it's costing them. Again, just like last year, we saw exactly what will happen when they don't. The Knicks for probably the second best team in the Eastern Conference last year. And then, come the second round against the Indiana Pacers, it was injury after injury after injury after injury after injury after injury. And it never stopped until the Knicks literally had to rely on Alec Burks to to essentially save them. It's happening again, Knicks fans. That's your reality. Until your head coach, learns how to use a bench, or maybe trading Mitchell Robinson and getting two solid bench players. Maybe that would have served you well, but you didn't do that. I don't know why. That's your reality. And that is why I left covering the Knicks. That is why I'm in Oklahoma City. That is why the Oklahoma City Thunder will win a championship before the New York Knicks. That is why I'm talking about it, because I know y'all listening to this rant are like, ha 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 ha, laughing your asses off. But it's the truth. It's the truth. What else do I have to say? Wait, there's nothing to say. Moving on to the main event of the evening. Now, as my mouse kind of screws up, I apologize. Now, let's talk about NASCAR. Moving into the house. Welcome to the newest segment of the Brock of the Buzzer podcast, where I will exclusively on this channel every single week, every single podcast, will discuss my favorite NASCAR team, Trackhouse Racing, and driver Ross Chastain, discussing last week's results and looking ahead to what's ahead the upcoming week. But today we're not going to look at last week's results, which were in fact good for the number one Moose Fraternity Chevrolet. I'm going to take a very deep dive into both Trackhouse Racing and Ross Chastain. So let's get started. The intro to Trackhouse. Trackhouse Racing was founded in 2020 by former NASCAR driver Justin Marks out of Nashville, Tennessee, not Charlotte, North Carolina. Fast forward to 2021, where Marks acquired his former kart owner, his former kart owner's chip, or his former car owner's NASCAR assets. And who was that car owner? Chip Ganassi. He is still active in the NTT IndyCar Series, but is no longer active in the NASCAR Cup Series or the NASCAR Xfinity Series. Because Marks bought everything from Ganassi to the shop, the haulers, the people, essentially. The two charters, which are the most important things in this purchase. Why? Because you need those two charters to race on Sundays. If you are an unchartered team, you are considered an open car, which essentially means if there is more than 40 cars in a given Cup Series field, you must qualify in on speed. Yes, that does not happen very often, but when it does, it could cause some serious issues. And now Trackhouse Racing resides in, of course, the shop that Marks purchased from Ganassi, which is located in Mooresville, North Carolina. It did not take long because Marks had a, a, a first car with Daniel Suarez, who was still with the team, but we're not going to talk about him. We probably won't ever talk about Daniel Suarez on this podcast, but it did not take Justin Marks long to name his second driver, the aforementioned Ross Chastain. In 2022, the team's success was immediate, thanks in large part to NASCAR's seventh generation car, or known as the NASCAR Next Gen car. Winning 3 races, leading laps, and making a Championship 4 appearance with Chastain. And you may be asking, what is the Championship 4? The Championship 4 is essentially the 4 drivers going into the final race of the NASCAR Cup Series season. This year held at Phoenix Raceway in Arizona, of course. When you're in that Championship 4, you have the opportunity to win a championship. The majority of the time, you must win the race to win the championship. But there was one year where that didn't happen. That was in 2023 with Team Penske's Ryan Blaney. But Chastain was in the 2022 Championship 4 and finished second to Joey Logano. I believe it was something like 100 and something feet away from Trackhouse's first championship in just their second, or actually, second year of competition. Fast forward to 2023. Trackhouse found their third driver, former Australian Supercars champion Shane Van Gisbergen, or in short, SVG. Let's make it simple. And that's what he will be known as on this podcast. We're going to talk about him a fair amount on this show because I love SVG as well. And Marks knew he had something special when SVG won on the streets of Chicago in 2023 in his Cup Series debut, making him the first driver since 1960 to do so. Soon after, SVG would sign a contract. I'm talking too much, people. Give me some time here. He signed a contract and was named driver of the number 88 Chevrolet soon after. In fact, he is in his rookie season this year in 2025. And also, Trackhouse now holds probably the biggest young driver to come through NASCAR since probably Kyle Larson. His name is Connor Zilisch. This year, he is running full-time with Junior Motorsports in the NASCAR Xfinity Series, driving the number 88 WeatherTech Chevrolet. And he is slated to make his Cup Series debut this weekend at the Circuit of the Americas, driving the number 87 Red Bull Chevrolet. Yes, you heard that correctly. The Red Bull Chevrolet, as Red Bull has made their return to NASCAR after a long, long time away. Trackhouse Racing also owns one of the most diverse sponsorship lineups in the NASCAR Cup Series garage, including deals with Anheuser-Busch, aka Busch Beer, Red Bull, as I just mentioned, Coca-Cola, Wendy's, etc. And all of those companies are relatable to a person like me who now is in the 26 to uh, uh, the 26 to 54-year-old demographic, which is the demographic that NASCAR has been struggling with for many, 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 many moons. But with new teams like Trackhouse and, of course, 2311 Racing, owned by Michael Jordan, those 26 to 54-year-olds are now flocking to NASCAR just to see what it's all about. And that's what I'm trying to do here on this podcast. Finally, let's talk about Justin Marks himself. Marks has shown a commitment and investment in the NASCAR and wants his team, his employees, and the team's fans to be disruptors. Something that Ross Chastain said during his post race interview last year at Kansas. I want to be a disruptor, and for, you know, as a guy, as a young adult per se, who is trying to make his way in, the professional sports world via the journalism field, that holds weight because I'm not your normal person. I'm not, you know, I'm not a former athlete. I'm not really rich. I'm not like I have to work for it. And I want to be one of the people in that team, hopefully one day, that is considered a disruptor because I'm different in ways that I'm not going to disclose on this podcast. But for those who know me, know what I'm referring to. But and I'll say this to show you all how committed I am to this team. There is no other team that's ever existed in my lifetime. No other team that has existed in my lifetime of watching NASCAR that has meant more to me than this team does because of how they do things, what they do, who they have as partners, who their team owner is. Everything lines up with what I believe in, and that's what I'm going to believe in and showcase for you on this podcast for many years to come. On to the driver that will be showcasing here a lot on this show, Ross Chastain. Ross Chastain, an Elva, Florida native, is an eighth generation watermelon farmer. And that is no joke, people. That is fact. Everybody in this country has probably had, pardon me, I'm talking too much, has probably had his watermelons or his family's watermelons. JDI Watermelon Corporation. That is the Chastain family. You've probably seen him in your local Tops, your local Wegmans, your local, supermarkets. You've seen him. And that's what he thought he was going to do, but then he came up with this crazy dream of wanting to race cars because his father did it on the side. And Chastain literally had to fight and fight and fight tooth and nail all the way up to the NASCAR Cup Series. What do I mean by fighting tooth and nail? He raced for underfunded teams, even paying for his own tires to race on um, the weekends, which is unheard of in today's world. But Ross Chastain did that. Chastain would soon earn what he thought would be a life or a career changing opportunity when he was given the chance to run a full NASCAR Xfinity Series season for the aforementioned Chip Ganassi Racing. But due to sponsorship issues that I will not get into, I know what they were and are at the time, but I'm not going to disclose that information here either. But he would eventually choose to go run a full-time Truck Series season with a yet another underfunded team in Nice Motorsports, a team in which Chastain still races for 5 times a year to this very day. And he did compete for a championship in the 2019 season at Phoenix in the championship 4, which again he had a phenomenal year. I think he had 3 or 4 wins, was consistently fast, etc. Chastain would run the entire 2021 season with Ganassi before he was named the driver of the number 1 car by Justin Marks in Trackhouse Racing. And as they say, the rest is history. Since the start of the 2022 season, Chastain has amassed 5 wins and become one of the most popular Cup Series drivers and looks to return into playoff contention in 2025 after just missing it in 2024. And to conclude, this is what's coming up this week for Ross Chastain and the number 1 team at COTA. Ross will have his first double duty weekend of the season racing in the NASCAR Xfinity Series for Junior Motorsports. Does that name sound familiar? Junior Motorsports? Who does that team belong to? None other than Dale Earnhardt Jr. And he will run the number 9 Acceptance Insurance Chevrolet. This race will take place on Saturday at 2:30 p.m. Eastern on the CW. If you don't know what the CW is, the CW is a local channel. We all have it. If you're bored this upcoming Saturday and want to see some pretty good road course racing, tune in again at 2:30 p.m. Eastern on the CW. And on Sunday, of course, Ross Chastain will once again race at the Circuit of the Americas in the number 1 Busch Light Chevrolet with a little different look this week, a look that I love. In fact, I've already pre-ordered the die-cast car for because I like the look so much. I think it looks phenomenal. It will pop off of your screen. So if you tune into that race, which is at 3:30 p.m. Eastern on Fox, you'll see it. You'll see the Busch Light logo. You're going to see some Texas colors, obviously red, white, and blue. It looks incredible. Again, if you are bored on Sunday afternoon, no football, boring NBA games are on, and you're just looking for something to watch, tune in on Sunday at 3:30 p.m. Eastern. And on next week's show, we will recap this weekend at COTA and look ahead to Phoenix, Arizona, the home, of course, to the championship race that I was just referring to. They go there twice a year, and next week is stop number 1 on the NASCAR calendar to Phoenix Raceway. So, sorry to rant, sorry to, sorry to, keep you a while. Again, if you stayed the whole time, I really appreciate it. If you watched the whole video, appreciate it. Please like the video, share the video, and subscribe. Again, thank you for listening to the Brock and the Buzzer podcast. I'm your host, Brock Kowalski, and I hope you all enjoyed. And I'll see you all next week.